The sin that unraveled David's life didn't start where most people think it did. It didn't start with Bathsheba. It actually started earlier with one small step back. 2 Samuel chapter 11 opens with a line that almost feels incidental. It says it was the time of year when kings typically go out to war, but David stayed home. And in that line, we see the first crack. David was supposed to be leading, but instead he disengaged. Let's be honest, in that moment, it probably didn't feel very dramatic. In fact, it probably sounded pretty reasonable. David had been fighting battles for years. Maybe the rest even felt earned, but stepping back from what you're called to always creates space. And space has a way of filling itself. So David goes up on the roof, and on that roof, he glances upon Bathsheba. And from that glance, he makes a choice. And from that choice starts a web of deception that ultimately costs someone their life. And then David does what most of us do when we realize we've made a mess. He just goes into trying to manage it. He tries to arrange things so nobody will find out. He downplays the situation. He just keeps leading the nation as if nothing was wrong. And I guess from the outside, things probably look pretty stable until Nathan finally confronts him with his reality. And then when that happens, Psalm 51 shows us where an encounter with grace begins with David. That chapter opens up with David crying out, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love. Against you only have I sinned." This is such a raw moment. There's no explanation or reframing details. David doesn't attempt to soften the story or make himself look better somehow. In fact, for the first time, he just tells the truth. Now, that line, "Against you and you only have I sinned," doesn't mean no one else was hurt. It means, though, that David understands that beneath every visible failure is something deeper. It shows that sin is first a rupture with God. And the turning point in David's life wasn't when he stopped trying to control the story, it was when he finally decided to be honest. And so Lent presses us into that space. It's not about the version of your life that people see, it's the quieter one, the places where you've drifted a little bit, where comfort replaced obedience, where you've stepped back and told yourself that it isn't that big of a deal. Be careful, because sin rarely explodes overnight. It usually accumulates quietly, and grace doesn't really move in while you're defending yourself. It can only enter when we stop explaining. And so here's the question for today. Where have you been protecting an image instead of naming what's real? God isn't waiting for you to spin the story. He's waiting for your honesty. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me before the noise.